Be seated. We're going to finish up today what we started last week about making memories. It was a good weekend last week to talk about memories on Memorial Day weekend. And memory's kind of a funny thing. I don't know about yours, but mine kind of changing as I get older. Strangely enough, the older I get, the more it seems like I can remember 50 years ago, but the less I can remember what happened yesterday. So I don't know if any of y'all are experiencing that or not, but memories, it's weird what we remember and what we forget. And it's sometimes odd why we remember certain things. I want to share with you a memory today. I remember this week. Maybe it was because I was preparing for this, finish this message about making memories. But I remembered something that it was significant to me 54 years ago as a 6-year-old kid. Looking back now, it doesn't seem so bad. But for you to understand this memory, I got to kind of lay the groundwork for it because it relates to an expectation that my family had of me even before I was born. You see, I was supposed to be a girl. My family had 2 boys already, and my parents, when my mother got pregnant with me, they were both in their 40s. And so I was going to be their girl that they never had, you know. And they were so sure I was going to be a girl that they didn't select a boy's name for me, they selected a girl's name. And if you young people are sitting there thinking, well, you know, how come they didn't know? What about the ultrasound? We didn't have an ultrasound back then, okay? Every birth was a surprise. It's a boy, or it's a girl, and you didn't know till then. And so, but my family was sure it was going to be a girl. They picked out my girl's name. Now, I know I'm going to hear this back from some of you, like I already have. I thought it was with friends, but the first 2 services let me down. Some of them paid me back for this. My name was going to be Mary Beth Thrasher. And I'm sorry, this is not the face of a Mary Beth. I'm sorry, okay? And so my parents had to scramble and figure out a boy's name when I was born, and I wasn't Mary Beth. But can you imagine what 2 older brothers did with that information? I mean, how many of you have older siblings? You understand kind of the picture I'm painting, right? Of what 2 older siblings would do with that kind of information. So I grew up with them teasing me, calling me Mary Beth. Now with that in mind, here's the weird memory I had this week of something that took place when I was 6 years old. One Sunday in church, my little home church in Arkansas, and the seating area of that church was smaller than this section right here. We didn't have a children's church, so all the kids had to go to big church with their parents. And so we're all in church one Sunday morning, and my pastor asked a question to all the little girls in church that morning. And he asked them to respond by raising their hand. Now, as usual, I was paying no attention to what the pastor was saying on Sunday morning. Okay? I know you would never do that, but I was not listening. And one of my brothers, they were about 8 and 10 years older than me, so I was easily manipulated by them. And one of them noticed I wasn't paying attention, so he nudges me in the side and says, "Hey, you're supposed to raise your hand. Raise your hand." So I raised my hand with all the other little girls in the church. Here I am, I'm trying to live down Mary Beth, and I'm raising my hand with all the little girls in the church. I cannot tell you at the time what an awful moment that was. Because my pastor, bless his heart, and I say with all the southern sarcasm I could possibly attach to it, bless his heart, he stops the whole service and he says, "Well, I see we have a new girl in church today. Your name must be Donna instead of Donnie." So can you imagine what I was called after that? If they didn't want to call me Mary Beth, they called me Donna after that. So 54 years later, I'm not really scarred with that. But it's a memory that still stinks in my mind just a little bit to this day, what my brother did to me that day. Well, that kind of leads where we were talking last week, because, you know, the Bible talks about in that little verse in Proverbs 10:7 that we looked at last week, it really talks about 2 kinds of memories you're going to make in your life. You're going to make some memories that are fragrant, and you're going to make some that stink. Proverbs 10:7 says, "The memory of the righteous will be a blessing, In other words, the memory in the Old Testament context of righteous at that particular moment, those who try to do right, those who are living a good life, those who are above board and people of honesty, the memories that those people make from that kind of conduct are going to smell good. They're going to be a blessing. They're going to linger on like a fragrant aroma. It lingers on. But that verse says the memory or the name of the wicked will rot. Rotten things stink. And so the memories that are left behind by a life that is in conflict with other people and people who are hostile and unfriendly and unkind, those memories are going to stink. One of my fragrant memories is going to take place after church today. Joyce does this a lot. In our crock pot at home is now a roast, and it's going to have potatoes in it and carrots. It's one of my favorite meals. And when I walk into the house after church this afternoon, you know what I'm going to think? Something smells good. You want to live the kind of life where people say something smells good about that person, about the kind of life they live. But on occasion, we have made the mistake of leaving something in the trash that we shouldn't have. And what do you think when you walk into the house? Something stinks. You don't want to leave behind the kind of lifestyle where people say something stinks about that person. There's just something about the memories that they're leaving behind that smell. And that's where we went last week with Proverbs 10:7. The problem is, none of us are righteous all the time. So that means that all of us are a mixture of stinky and fragrant. We all leave behind a mixture of the good and the bad of our lives. And what is the solution to that? Well, the solution we began to hint at and talk about a little bit last week. We're going to go to kind of an odd place to see that today in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. It's been a long time since you've been to Ecclesiastes on a Sunday morning, I'm willing to bet. But Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, it's the second book after Psalms. If you turn kind of to the middle of your Bible, it's Psalms, and then you go Proverbs, and then Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Now, if you didn't bring a Bible, look under a chair around you in front. There's a Bible somewhere. If you pick up one of those, turn to page 478, and that will put you at Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. We're going to read the last two verses of this book to see the solution of this weird mixture of fragrant and stinky memories that all of us produce with our lives. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. Now all has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. God is aware of every memory that we're making. Whether it's good, a fragrant memory, or evil, a memory that is made from being hostile and in conflict and sinful, God is going to bring it into the light. But the conclusion, the summary, the solution to this mixture of the memories that we make is found in verse 12. There is one overshadowing memory that is fragrant and will cover up all of the stink of our lives. And he says it in verse 12. All has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. If you understand the book of Ecclesiastes, you understand what a profound statement that is at the end of this book. Ecclesiastes, if you've never read it, you need to. It is a brutally honest book about a man who tried everything. I mean, he tried everything to find happiness. He tried good, bad, evil, up, down. He went everywhere, tried everything he could to find happiness and to find peace and to find wealth, to make good memories, and nothing worked. Everything he tried left him feeling kind of empty and like it was not worth it and it wasn't working in his life. And the last two verses are where he finally realizes there's one thing. There's one thing and one thing only that's going to make the kind of memory I want to leave behind. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God, keep His commandments. This is from a guy who tried everything. I don't know about you, I've tried a lot of stupid stuff in my life. You may be involved in trying some things to find happiness and to find peace and to find something you're looking for. Well, here's the conclusion of the matter. What you're looking for is God. God alone can help us make the one memory that will overshadow all of the stink of our lives. And when you run this verse through the New Testament and you consider what the word righteous means there, it just doesn't mean a person who's trying to do right. Righteous in the New Testament context means you realize you can never be right enough. You can never be good enough. On your own, you will never be righteous in God's sight. And so what it does is it puts you at the foot of the cross, looking up, saying, God, my life stinks, and I need Jesus because He died on the cross for me, and He rose from the dead. That's the overshadowing memory. But no matter what kind of life you live, it will be fragrant forever. I promise you it'll be fragrant for those left behind when your days on this earth are done. Because that other verse in Proverbs says that the memory of the wicked will rot. Most of us don't consider ourselves wicked people. If I use the word wicked, I mean, preacher, that's pretty harsh. I mean, I'm sitting here in church, you know, I work hard, I pay taxes, I'm a pretty good person. Remember, you got to run that verse through the New Testament. You know what it means? It means if you don't trust Jesus Christ, you're wicked, meaning you're hostile to God. That's what that word means. Because the New Testament teaches, no matter how good you are in an earthly sense, no matter how many songs you know at church, no matter how many times you go, no matter what kind of good neighbor you are, until you trust Jesus, the Bible says you are an enemy of God. You are wicked. And the only memory you're going to leave behind is going to rot forever. And that memory is going to be one that some people don't like to hear these days, but it's going to be the memory of somebody who died without Jesus and will spend eternity in hell apart from God. Is that what you want to leave behind? You know, at every funeral I've done for the past 20 years, I've developed a habit because I want people to know the truth. You know, and usually at a funeral there's a casket up here with the deceased body in it, or there's an urn filled with ashes. And I usually step to the side and I point at that casket and I tell people there, someday this will be you. Someday this will be me. Well, we don't have a casket, but folks, someday this will be you. Someday it will be me. Someday our days on earth will be over. And people will gather in a church or a funeral home or somewhere, and they'll reflect on our lives. And hopefully they'll have some good things to say about, you know, what a good neighbor we were and how we helped them out and, you know, we said some kind words. But when that day comes, here's the conclusion of the matter according to Ecclesiastes. The conclusion of the matter is, what did you do with Jesus? Did you leave behind the fragrant memory of your forgiveness and your salvation and that you're in heaven? Or the memory that will stink forever that you died without Jesus Christ? I've shared with you several times in recent weeks, and I don't know why it has come up so much, but it just has, about my father and fragrant memories that my dad left behind for me, time spent with us. Even, they weren't fragrant memories then, but you know, even times that he would warm up my backside when I didn't behave, and he was pretty quick to do that. And I look back now, and you know, I mean, he was doing me a favor, teaching me some things. And my dad was known for his honesty and integrity. He was well known in the community. My dad was a good man. My dad was a hero in his family. Because when his father abandoned him and his mother and his 4 younger sisters. My dad quit school at the end of 4th grade. Never went back to school. Had a 4th grade education. He quit school to go to work as a 4th grade boy to put food on his family's table. And my family looked up to him for that. He was a hero in my family. And never did you hear a disparaging word in my family about my dad, except maybe for Aunt Stinky. She said disparaging words about everybody. I told you about her last week, okay? I'm not calling her Grace anymore, because that's the wrong name. Aunt Stinky, okay? But, you know, and it was almost like they thought my dad was too good. Let me tell you a story. True story, just to show you how good people create stinky memories too. A few years ago, Joyce was in our home office at home, a little office where we work. And she was on a computer, on the internet, surfing the internet. And now she has a weird sense of humor, and so she, you know, I didn't take it wrong, so I don't want you to take it wrong. But I hear Joyce say, "Hey Donnie, come here, your brother died." What? My brother died? Surely I would have heard about that. She said, "No, his obituary's on the internet." And I went in there, and there's an obituary for a guy named Charles Thrasher, who died in a town 10 miles from my hometown in Arkansas. I said, "Joyce, I don't have a brother named Charles." She said, "I know, I was just messing with you." But it was kind of odd. It struck me odd because there were no Thrashers in that part of Arkansas except my family. I thought, well, you know, I mean, I've been gone for 100 years in the Army and stuff, and probably some moved in and related. Do you know the odd thing is, Charles Thrasher turned out to be my brother. A brother I didn't know I had. A brother that came from a stinky memory of my father's. My dad went off to Oklahoma to work when times got hard during the Depression in Arkansas. And obviously he didn't behave himself. And long before me and my other brothers were born, Charles Thrasher was born. I never got to meet him because my family invested so much in protecting my father's reputation. Some of the older members of our family knew it. We never did. Because my dad had to be so perfect in their mind that they couldn't allow any imperfection. And the story was one of my brothers found out, went to an older cousin who was there when the stink took place. And what happened is that family of that young woman who gave birth to Charles Thrasher drove all the way from Oklahoma to Arkansas after that boy was born. And my family scraped up enough money to pay them off to go back to Oklahoma and be quiet. But what does that verse say? Every deed, good or bad, hidden or not, if it stinks, it's going to be found there. Why do I tell you that story? If you're from a perfect family, you're probably in the wrong church, because I didn't grow up in a perfect family. I don't have a perfect family. I'm not perfect. I tell you that to challenge you that no matter how good you think you are, you're not good enough to never leave any stink behind with your life. You're the same weird mixture of fragrant and stinky that I am, and that it turns out my dad was. Now let me go a little bit further. My dad lived 53 years on this earth. He lived over 52 and a half of those years without Jesus. So what if he had waited a little bit longer to trust him? Or what if the sudden illness that killed him had happened a few months earlier? What I'm telling you is all the good stuff that people said about my dad at his funeral would have meant nothing. Because there wouldn't have been anything to cover up the stink of his sins if he hadn't trusted Jesus Christ.